how do we balance engagement of fandom and user experience with monetization in its most robust form? We're not letting the fans tell us what to do, but we're listening to them and understanding how they're consuming content. If we keep doing that, which we have, I think we'll just continue evolving and giving them more of what they want.
Welcome to Future of Fandom, the podcast where leagues, teams, and federations learn how to turn passive viewers into loyal superfans through gamification, loyalty, and next-gen engagement. Let's build what's next together.
Welcome, everyone, to the Future of Fandom podcast. I'm Miheer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of LiveLike. And today with us, we have Stefanie Rapp from TNT Sports. Thank you for joining us, Stefanie. I would love for you to introduce yourself for the sake of the audience.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm with TNT Sports, and I'm the SVP of strategy and sales across all sports and all endpoints.
And I think we go way back. I think,
We
obviously
do.
we've worked together for many years. I remember us being on a podcast, on a panel together in the past as well. But this is the first time
Yep.
I'm getting a chance to actually interview you. So this is a
Yeah.
new
It's
experience.
exciting.
I'm excited as
It
well.
is.
And you've obviously gone through quite a bit in the last, gosh, we can talk about your career, but just in the last
A long time.
2 years, there's been so
Yes.
much. Um, I'd love a little bit of a background on how things have evolved and shifted, especially within terms of like the role that you play at TNT Sports, and on a going forward basis, where your focus is.
My role has shifted quite a bit throughout my time at Bleacher Report and TNT Sports. Started off on the sales side, moved into strategy role, working with Luis Silberwasser, and now I'm back on the sales side. And I think while all the roles have been very different and challenging in different ways, I would say the common thread throughout all of them is how do we balance sort of engagement of fandom and user experience with monetization in its sort of most robust form.
Yeah.
And I think like my specialty inside of that is that I don't mind sort of the natural brush up between revenue and content. And B, I don't believe one can exist without the other.
Yeah.
And so finding that balance is super critical to have a brand that succeeds over time. And we've found that.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting challenge. I remember, we worked with Bleacher Report, and when the relaunch happened of the platform, obviously it's a community-led platform, so you can hear user feedback instantaneously, and it's never easy to shift from a community-first platform to then now trying to balance monetization as well, and
Yeah,
how do you engage users with that in mind?
exactly. I think you're right. Listen, there's good and bad that comes with being a community led and having that constant feedback loop. And I think brands that do it well, Bleacher among them, is we are listening to our fans and we are making sure that we continue evolving and moving the direction in what they expect from us. We're not letting the fans tell us what to do, but we're listening to them and understanding how they're consuming content. And, if we keep doing that, which we have, I think we'll just continue evolving and giving them more of what they want. And inside of that comes the monetization. Interestingly enough, even on the TNT Sports side, when it comes to something like NASCAR or Roland Garros, social across the ecosystem has become louder when we look at our linear production as well.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so understanding what's expected of us based on our historical relationship through other sports and being able to give the fans more of that through the different sports has been critical for us.
I mean, obviously with TNT, you can't go a day without talking about Chuck, Shaq, and Ernie, and Kenny and
True.
those guys, and all the tweets that show up on the broadcast feed where people are commenting in real time on what's being discussed on the show.
True. Yes.
There is
They
a
are
lot of feedback
beloved.
loop.
Yes.
That's awesome. Look, I mean, maybe taking a step back and just like tracing your journey over the last 15 years, you've worked at storied brands through your life from GQ to Bleacher
Yeah.
Report. What was the spark for you in terms of tying brands to fandom and digital first, communities led? You've sort of seen that shift. I would argue that in the media world, Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, TNT has always been one step ahead of everyone else, specifically in the legacy media world in terms of new forms of fandom. And I'm curious. You've seen that journey. I'd love to hear some inside baseball from your perspective in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I have worked at some incredible brands,
Yeah.
world-renowned brands, quite frankly,
Yeah.
and I think, one of the things that I realized early on was the cultural relevance of a brand and the importance of that brand to the fans or consumers and the culture at large as far as shaping the conversation. What has attracted me to those working at those brands specifically is then understanding the business of that monetization opportunity behind the cultural relevance that pushes a brand forward. And, joining Bleacher Report and House of Highlights, listen, it was a calculated risk
Yeah.
because it was trying to take the fandom that, yes, existed on Bleacher Report, but drive the cultural conversation in an age of digital transformation that while we had thought had sort of happened and was happening, when I look back now 7 years ago, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Dear God, nothing had happened at that point," you
Yeah.
know? So, it's been really fun. I mean, what is really fueling that, like, devotion to a brand is the emotion. It becomes really personal. It's part of someone's identity, and understanding that and respecting it in the form of a business. And, I think that media consumption on top of that then changes drastically. So, on one hand, you have to understand the technology that's at play. Then you have to understand the consumption habits of the consumer. And how do you tie those pieces together to deliver a product to an audience that is wanted before they know they want it?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I quickly learned and really appreciated at Bleacher, and I'm super proud to say it existed before I got there and it still flows through it today, is Bleacher's content team are fans of Bleacher Report. It's like built by the fan for the fan. And I think you feel that when you're on our app or on our O&O or consuming a piece of content that has gone viral outside of our ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think you really feel that. And that's part of Bleacher's specialness.
But I mean, honestly, I mean, even as a fan of Inside the NBA and Bleacher Report and House of Highlights, I mean, so many of our consumption habits having changed over the past decade. We hear about people follow more rather than watch kind of a thing. I don't necessarily look at it as a negative thing anymore. In the past, it felt like a disruption. This is not good, but I think it's been additive in the grand scheme of things. For the sports property holders, and now everyone is leaning into that power of social. I mean, Bleacher and,
Yes,
and House of Highlights, which also seemed like the perfect marriage at the time when it was done. I
absolutely.
think they were the pioneers in pushing that change, whether it was on the
Yeah.
app or on social in both places.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, and I agree with everything you said, and at the root of it, it's because a certain consumer fan base did not feel like they were being served,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And I think that's key to it, and it's why all these other brands, some of the most storied brand in the world who, back when I was at GQ would never have touched social, let alone us, really begging them to do digital, quite frankly. And now they're all over social because they understand that their consumers who are our fans, they exist everywhere.
Yeah. You
You
need to meet
just
where
you
they
have
are.
to correct, exactly.
Yeah.
And Bleacher was an early pioneer of that. And TNT Sports was in its own way with the development of Ernie and Shaq and Chuck, right? Like they understood that having these people behind a desk and sort of taking that wall down between them and the audience and therefore creating fans of those personalities themselves, let alone the sport, was a key to the success.
I continue to maintain it is the best show on television by
Yeah,
far.
agreed,
It's by far, and
agreed.
I've had the privilege of going behind the scenes and seeing the green screen. And
Yeah, it's
when I
pretty
got a tour,
amazing.
oh my god, it's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
actually curious to see how it evolves now that it's going to be on ESPN a few times a year.
yeah,
It'll be interesting from my perspective. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was, we have talked about at Live Like, we have been sort of evangelizing or advocating this idea of, hey, don't let, as rights holders or as media companies, you're paying a lot for these rights. don't let the conversation around those rights happen off platform on Reddit or Twitter or and you guys have been the first and the most successful company at owning that discussion, owning the discourse, keeping that conversation on your platform, giving a chance for the people to communicate and lean into it, just bringing creators, whether it's Rob Perez or any of the other guys, leaning into that and making sure that that conversation happens on your platform. I'm actually curious. This is probably more of a little bit of an open-ended question. Like, have you seen the reticence in your colleagues or peers across the industry on doing that? Because everyone's still a little nervous, and we always point to Bleacher Report as like the benchmark.
I think everyone is nervous of what could be, of the unknown, of what's next,
Yeah.
what is, and it's not just what's next, it's like what's going to come in and totally disrupt this.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we have done an incredible job of is yes, predicting what's next, but also understanding what could be and therefore leaning into it and getting to determine our own future. And so, we saw that creators, I'm talking specifically about Bleacher Report and House of Highlights, right? Like, we saw that creators were starting to trend and we're starting to like have this pickup happen. And so everyone that we work with was like, wait, what if we leaned into it and went to them instead of them coming to us? And so that's how we continue to have our edge. That's how House of Highlights became what it was now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, these are like, stories upon stories upon stories in the hallways of House of Highlights and Bleacher Report. But I think it's true. I think it's, like I said at the start, we listen to our fans.
Yeah.
And even when you talk about linear and, a big, massive production scope like we have across TNT with the leagues that we represent, it's the same thing. Leagues trust us because we know our fans and we're going to deliver the best experience in whatever platform a fan comes to us on. And I think that's why we've been able to sort of keep it in house, if you will, and leagues trust us with it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And also, I mean, including now the big one, the NFL highlights coming onto the platform as well.
Absolutely. That's
Such a
huge.
perfect setup. It's a perfect platform and perfect partnership in my mind. How do you guys see? I mean, obviously, you talked about monetization, and that's a key part of your role as well. Um, so many of the people that we have talked to in the past have struggled with quote unquote fan engagement, which has become a little bit of a catch all or buzzword of sorts. How do you guys see monetizing fan engagement?
Listen, I agree that fan engagement gets thrown around pretty loosely if, in fact, it's not authentic to
Yeah.
who you are as a brand. And I think that TNT and Bleacher Report, time and time again, show up in a way that's authentic. When you think about something like March Madness, we have a fan fest and music festival
Yeah.
that's entirely free to the public, right? So it's like in direct opposition of trying to monetize everything. I think you have to know where and when the appropriate moment is for monetization, for fan engagement, like as a silo without any monetization, and then how to marry the two. And I think that's where the authenticity comes in. And if you're inauthentic,
Yeah.
fan fans are smart.
Yeah. They're discerning. Yep.
Yes, and they expect more of us and the brands that they, bring into their lives, and I'm really proud to say that we show up for them time and time again.
Yeah, but even including new innovative formats. I mean, now everyone talks about like the live shows on Netflix, but I think you guys were the first ones to innovate the golf format with the
Yeah.
match during COVID and
Yes.
bringing all of these
Yeah.
celebrities and influencers in. Historically, all of these legacy sports were so traditional in terms of how they were shown to the fan. You guys were the first ones to bring in a Brady or a Peyton Manning and change how people think of golf.
I agree. I mean, that came about because people inside the company love golf, they love sports, and they wanna be entertained. And so it sounds silly, but it's almost as simple as that. Of what do we wanna consume? How do we wanna consume it? What athletes do we wanna see play something that's not their professional sport?
Yeah.
And, that is how the match was born.
Yeah, and now everyone's sort of like It's like the
Yeah.
thing matches between influencers and stuff.
Yes,
Or
totally.
like, you'll find Netflix live streaming something, and I'm like, this has been done. They are not the ones who innovated this concept.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Exactly. In terms of constructing your rights portfolio, so much of it is digital first and stuff. You guys bought Roland Garros this year. You guys acquired NASCAR rights. What goes into the decision making of which properties you want to invest in? Are you looking at it as like, what's your community, what's your platform, and what kind of content fits for that platform, or it's the other way around?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think first and foremost, we're looking to entertain and engage the fans as much out of a calendar year as possible. And I think, one of the things that we've been able to do this past year is start building that presence from January through December. I think second to that is feeding off of our very well built devoted communities,
Yeah,
and being able to listen to fans and give them what they want.
yeah,
When something like Roland Garros is this unbelievable, prestigious event, right? That happens 2 weeks out of the year.
yeah,
And we actually didn't go in changing a thing. What made it so successful, and by the numbers, it was a runaway success on both linear and digital, like
yeah,
massive numbers.
yeah. Exceeded your expectations too?
Absolutely. I mean, exceeded everyone's
Yeah, yeah,
expectations. And what's so interesting about that is when we went into pre-production last year around this time, when we all went over to Paris, we stuck to what we know and we believe that we do really well. And that is exactly what got us the numbers that Roland Garros hadn't seen before. And so it's that then builds the trust, and now you can start, taking smaller risks together to understand where you can continue to push in and to go for season 2.
But actually, one curious question. Did you have to do anything behind the scenes, whether it's with the federation, whether it's with the players, you're a newer platform from a tennis streaming perspective in the US. Historically, it's been traditional broadcast players. Did you have to do anything to bring Roland Garros to the new age, so to speak?
We work incredibly closely with them.
Yeah.
Like the meeting we just had that I mentioned
Yeah.
was with the federation. We are
Okay.
in total lockstep with them the whole way.
Yeah.
And we respect their knowledge. They know it better than we do going into it, and
Yeah.
they respect ours.
Yeah.
They chose us as a media partner for a reason also.
Yeah.
And I think regardless of the league or the platform or the players, I think the sort of echoing sentiment about working with anyone across TNT Sports is trust, reliability. um, it's like a humanness to it all that I don't think every other media brand offers. I think at the end of the day, we really treat one another with respect and trust that we will represent the brand and the IP in the best possible way to fans. And we're not disparaging anyone along the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, but also I think tennis as a sport in general, and I'm a huge tennis fan. So tennis as a sport in general, maybe not necessarily the Grand Slams, but at least the ATPs and the WTAs have leaned into the whole power of social and getting the athletes
Yeah,
out there and getting them to, doing these fun bits with each of these
yeah.
athletes and stuff. And it lends itself to the younger audiences.
Well, I mean, listen, the reality is that different generations consume differently,
Yeah.
right? I mean, listen, I have a focus group of one. I have a 16-year-old son.
Okay.
So I look at the way I will sit down and maybe watch an entire match,
Yeah.
but he is definitely not.
No.
He is looking on social for the highlights, for the moment the winner, nails that last shot, who wins a set. He's looking for something totally different than I am. And I think, you know, we were able to do that for the NBA when we had those
Yeah.
rights. We have done it for NHL, we've done it for MLB. And I think it's understanding that consumer journey and having every different endpoint that we work with tell a cohesive story so that you and I can enter a conversation with our kids and we could have a full conversation about, said sport, said match, said rivalry, and but be talking about different pieces of content with it. And that's what's exciting.
That's actually, you sort of led me to the next question, which you addressed a little bit in the beginning as well. But like different fans consume all of these different sports differently, and you have a wide array of sports rights. Now you have college football in there as well. Some NFL lends itself to both legacy fans of these colleges, but also college going kids who are watching those matches. How do you decide, first of all, where to put, you have different avenues to showcase the content, whether it's linear, whether it's digital, whether it's, even you've streamed stuff on Max in the past. How do you decide how to cater to all of these different communities, different audiences based on the different content?
I mentioned it before, but in an ideal scenario, it is a cohesive story that is told throughout every platform we can touch.
Yeah.
And the way that's done well is by bringing in the different content leads, because Bleacher Report and House of Highlights, even as closely tied as they are, will tell a story very differently.
Yeah.
And then you fold in TNT, right, from a linear perspective. And then you take Max and you put that in there. And even if you take True or TNT, it's like all of these different entities have a different voice and a different way that they present the games or the highlights or whatever it is to the fan base, because the fan base is different throughout those and they consume it differently. They want to hear it differently. And I think it's just taking that into sort of the epicenter of what we're
And
doing.
so there's like a content life cycle, so to speak, like pre-game,
Yeah,
post-game. What do you do with the highlights? What do you do during live? And like all of these different
correct.
content teams are sort of working together.
Yes, that's right. And then we have a lot of meetings, internal
Yeah, I
meetings.
bet. Yeah. Sounds like it in my mind. I'm imagining it.
Yes, we are like in the meeting vortex over here. But, it helps because we all get in a room and then each piece of the puzzle presents their piece. And so we're making sure that there's this thread that goes through everything and this cohesiveness that, doesn't feel totally disparate when you're looking only at one platform.
But that also probably lends itself to you from a sales and monetization perspective. That probably also gives you a good avenue when you're going to sponsors or brands in terms of how you can weave them in through different parts of the journey.
That is the intention.
Yeah. I remember because
Yes,
when
yeah.
we worked with March Madness a few years ago, and I remember we were innovating on some engagement, and there was a concept of called the chief madness officer, who was sort of you could do an AMA session, you're live streaming in the MML app, and you could communicate and engage, and you can. And I remember Ritz Cookies came on as a sponsor, and their whole thing was welcome snacks or something like that. And so the idea was MML team was going out there and getting team managers and coaches from each of the teams that were represented within the tournament and
Okay.
asking them, how do you welcome people into your school
Absolutely.
and like freshmen and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's such a good story to tell, but with a different lens, right? It's not just creating new pieces of content with the as a brand takeover, but a brand takeover in an engagement format.
That's right. I think it has to be organic. I
Yeah.
mean, consumers now understand that brands are funding the amazing content they get to consume, and it's our responsibility and like our duty to those consumers and those fans to
Yeah.
weave integrations in the most organic way possible. And that's how brands really get their value out of it.
I mean, I think from my standpoint, the idea that as a fan, I would, people are like, I'm worried that fans will get upset if we put in too many ads or too many sponsorships. Of course, if you cram 5 ads before I could see a piece of content, probably yes, I would get pissed off. But there is a way to bring it in a smart manner that feels organic.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I think that any talent or media company that doesn't work on having brand integration a part of what they're pushing out to consumers is foolish. Consumers expect it at this point, right? Do I think that you're right? Like having, 5 ads for every one piece of content is foolish. There is that fine balance of UX plus monetization. And, it's something that Bleacher Report and House of Highlights has taken very seriously. We on the linear side, we are constantly in conversations with production about it. And how do we try to push the envelope both on the consumption standpoint and the production value, but also on the monetization side.
So with that in mind, then, because from my standpoint, I mean, there is one thing that you guys are doing well, and we talked about it's like a running theme through the whole podcast. But people out there, everyone, you go on LinkedIn now. There's all these LinkedIn influencers, right? Like everyone's
Yeah,
saying the
yeah.
same thing, parroting the same stuff. Obviously, fan journeys are fragmented. Obviously, people like we can talk about how younger audiences consume content differently, and the fan behaviors are changing in your mind and given your experience across all of these different properties. Like what would be like one actionable piece of advice that you could give when people are trying to build fandom and future proofing those?
Listen to your fans. It is as simple as that, but it's also not, and I know that,
Yeah.
right? In some respects, you're building a brand, which means you're also building your audience, so you don't necessarily have that back and forth communication. But I think if you whether it's people in your life or other brands you admire or other communities you see out there, start there if you have to, but ultimately you listen to your fans and they will undoubtedly lead you in the right way.
This is a biased question. Maybe it's a leading question because we obviously
Okay.
are in the business of powering communities. For you, giving your fans a voice, for good or bad, is a strategy that works in the long run.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Listen, I think it's like a pendulum. They can swing very heavily one way or the other. And I think so long as we, the center of it at the brand, I'm not saying we follow the pendulum one way or another. I'm saying we listen to it and then figure out what works for us in relation to what they are expecting of us or want from us. Yes, I totally am an advocate of
And
that.
in terms of risk taking, because you guys have been innovating, and that by definition, sort of change, bringing in change is a risk. Like, how do you decide how much risk to take? Is it a matter of trial and error? Is it Does cable lend itself better, or cable or digital first platforms lend themselves better to broadcast platforms in that sense, in terms of how much risk one can or cannot take?
Our belief, I would say, throughout our entire organization is that risk taking is smart so long as it's calculated. And so long as that if we see it's not working, we move off it real fast. And we and I don't necessarily have a preference on where that risk is taken. I think you take it throughout all of our distribution points and all of our communities and fans. And you just see things that work better than others and you move off it real quick. Similarly, when something does work and they're sort of like that green light sign, you dive into it heavier really fast also.
Speaking about what you just said in there in terms of risk taking, if you're a blank slate to invent the ultimate fan experience, and this might have already been discussed in rooms where it might have been an idea that got squashed, or it might be something that only you've thought of. What's one thing that you'd experiment with, whether it's unconventional or risky?
I don't necessarily know if this is unconventional or risky, but
Yeah.
looking at the fan experience we have, like my favorite event to go to is March Madness. And the reason is because of the fandom at it. It is the most fun. It is the most fun because it's college kids, right? It's like kids rooting for their team. It's infectious,
Yeah.
it's alive. Like, what if we were able to take that experience around the country? What if we could bring it down a level into high schools and get kids, like actual kids who play basketball and not, really interested in what's happening in March Madness and sort of take it throughout the whole country and do like this big overtake of it? Because while, yes, it dominates the city it's in, I don't know if there's much more to it than that.
You're saying more so in the sense that the city is alive wherever the tournament is being hosted, and then obviously on broadcast on TV it's everywhere, but other
It's
cities
everywhere,
may
but I'm
not be
saying
taking.
on the
Yeah,
ground,
got it.
right?
Yes.
And part of that, listen, there was huge opportunities with events pre-COVID. And then COVID happened, and I think they're slowly coming back, but nothing is better than being at a live event. And being able to give that to more communities around the country, I think is something that would be really, really fun to do. And the notion of just getting more kids involved in it, kids, especially teens, they look for things to do. I
Yeah.
have one of my own. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
he
I have a
wants things to
6-year-old, so
do,
I'm not there
right?
yet, but yeah.
There you go. You're not there. You will be soon.
Yeah, I have a 6 and a 3. I should
And
not say only a 6-year.
you're in the thick of it.
Yes, we are.
But like giving them a place to go during this sort of really fun time at colleges would be incredible.
That's really interesting. And I mean, I'm curious just playing that idea out. Like you're saying, not just like having watch parties or bringing the fandom, but more like actually having the tournaments or the games being played in different, like the way the FIFA World Cup works, for example, like different cities and people are playing in different locations.
Well, that kind of happens, right, through the tournament. Like there are locations for Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and so on and so forth. I'm talking more about during March Madness weekend, there's the Fan Fest I talked about, there's a music festival. So, not just a watch party, but what if you brought those? What if you brought the Fan Festival and the music experience to all different cities with the backdrop of it being March Madness? It would
Uh,
take a massive
of
investment. I
course.
have no idea
That's
how
why
the,
this is,
if it would be right.
it's a dream
This is
concept.
pipe dream. Yeah. But I think that and then sure, you can have huge screens, and so the games are on and people are excited about it, but not making it so reliant on the 2 colleges or the 4 schools that are in the Final Four or the championship are the only ones invested. I just think there's something there, like, it's just this infectious and excitement that happens that I would love to be able to take advantage of in more cities than where the host city is.
It's actually a different concept. In my past live, like when it's in its first avatar, when we first began, we were a live streaming virtual reality platform. And so our whole concept was feel like you're at the stadium no matter where you are, because I grew up in India watching Formula One, Wimbledon, NBA, but never even imagining what a live experience might have felt like. And so the whole concept was feel like you're in the stadium but with your friends, so you can watch and talk together through the headset, the medium of the headset. Obviously that hasn't panned out as we all thought it would. But the idea there was like we were trying to bring fans from different cities into the stadium. You're saying
Sure.
bring the experience to
Yeah.
the fans where they are.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
It's interesting you say that because one of the ways our head of content talks about our NFL rights and how we're sort of going to market through Bleacher Report is like his viewpoint is to have a virtual credential for the fans and so give them the coverage that they would want if they were there themselves versus the more traditional way NFL is covered. So it just reminded me of that. It is that like virtual notion come to life a little
Yeah,
bit more.
absolutely. We have a segment which we do with all media execs. Just we ask you some rapid fire questions. If you're open to that, would love to get into that. So first one, what's one tool that you cannot live without?
Life 360. It's a tracking device on my 16-year-old.
Oh, okay, that's a good one, actually. Again, haven't reached
It's
that point
probably not
yet,
what
but
you were
I will.
expecting,
I'm
but it
pretty
is
close.
true.
That's a good one, and this is an app?
Yeah, it's an app. A friend who I worked with years ago told me about it when she has a daughter who's older than mine, so, yes,
That's
I stare at it a lot.
that's awesome. Which athlete or sports brand do you think really nails digital engagement?
I don't necessarily think there's a single anything that nails it continuously. I think it was brilliant that Taylor announced her new album on Travis's
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
That is marketing genius,
Which
through and through.
she is a master of.
Yes, she correct.
Yeah.
I think it was amazing. But I think there's also like smaller successes in terms of and some of this is self-serving, but like Unrivaled, because we have the rights, right? But Unrivaled really capitalizing on the moment of looking at how female athletes are paid and how they're treated and putting that at the epicenter of the new league that they're creating, which is picking up massive momentum year over year. Same, similar but different concept as Players Era does the same thing for college basketball players,
Yeah.
with putting, how they're paid and how they're treated at the epicenter of the tournament that they have every year. So I think there are ways that, it might be a smaller scale right now, but I predict that those will be very big points of success moving forward.
Awesome. What is one metric that you're obsessed with right now? Obviously, you're in monetization, so hopefully it's not like ROI, but like what's true metric?
I'll be honest, you say that and I instantly think of my steps. I'm
Oh,
like,
interesting.
that's the metric I'm most
I'm starting to see a
I'm
theme
most
between Live 360.
like I just, my life as most others is, constantly, the mesh of both personal and professional. And so, that is where my head goes.
Yeah, if I were to answer the question, I would have
Yeah.
probably answered it from a personal standpoint as well, because that is the one tool that
What
I
would you say?
I mean, honestly, today it's kind of ChatGPT, right? Like I'm just using it for planning birthday parties
Yeah,
and looking up
right,
like destinations and flights, or like,
right.
how do
Yeah,
I open up this, or how do I assemble this toy? Like I'm not going.
totally.
And so, I mean, there's a whole lot of disintermediation coming when web search go away, and just that's a different conversation altogether. But right now, another thing is Duolingo. Like I am obsessed with Duolingo because I'm learning a language through that, but my daughter is learning chess through it as well right now.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
pretty
it's
cool.
actually really fun.
Yeah, I would say I spend a lot of time on Reddit also.
I do meet only for
Um,
Formula One. I don't do anything else on Reddit.
well, there you go.
Just go to the Formula One subreddit. But see, that's actually a running theme for you, because to me, I describe Bleacher Report as the Reddit for sports to a certain extent. For the uninitiated, people who are not from the US, people who are like in India or like in other parts of the world where Bleacher Report is not a big platform for them. In fact, some functionalities don't even work when I try to access Bleacher Report externally, outside of the US. And so for them, I describe it as the Reddit for sports. And then last question was, if you were not working in sports, which industry would you be working in?
I would say I have two answers. One is something in the wellness area. I don't totally know what that would be. Something in wellness, and not because it's like super trendy.
Yeah, yeah,
I just
it's
think it's
important.
it's super important. But the truth is, if like I wasn't working in sports, I would like leave the city and go open a flower shop somewhere
Oh,
and like
really?
go hiking every afternoon. Yeah. It's like a total change of life. But I do love sports.
Yeah.
And I've fallen in love with it, and I hope to be in it for a very,
How
very
long
long
have you been
time.
in sports, out of curiosity?
Just since I joined Bleacher Report 8 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
I mean, I haven't been in one industry necessarily forever, but I was at GQ, I was at Wired, I was at DoubleClick back in the day before Google.
So digital publishing in the from a larger thematic perspective.
Yeah, sports is by far the most fun.
I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, Stephanie. Thank you so much. This
Thank
has been an
you.
awesome discussion. I think we covered a lot of ground. This was great. I appreciate you taking the time and joining us.
This was really fun. I had a
Awesome.
good time.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Future of Fandom. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow LiveLike on LinkedIn for more conversations with the people shaping what's next in the world of sports and media. Until next time, keep building for fans, not just users.